My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave DeBow. And have you ever wondered how a robotics educator transitioned into a successful full-time real estate investor? Well, today, my guest, TJ Nguyen, I'm always bad with that name. You can correct me out, from Burlington and Auburn, Alabama. He's here to share his incredible journey from teaching robotics to managing 31 plus midterm rental properties. TJ, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Bryce.
You want to correct that last name for me just so that we're all on the same page? How do you even say that?
You pronounce it Nguyen.
Oh, okay. So I was way off. There you go.
The 40% of Vietnamese people have this last name, so it's much more common than Smith.
Let's start the episode with why. Why is that? How did that happen?
When the last dynasty in Vietnam's era before they went communist, I would guess, was the Nguyen dynasty, and a lot of people changed their name to Nguyen to avoid persecution.
They just changed it. So everyone just adopted it like Smith or John Doe.
Yeah, so Smith is like 9 to 11% of people here by comparison.
Yeah, crazy. So let's jump into real estate. First of all, can you tell us a bit about your background in robotics education and how and why you transitioned into real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to get a robotics program in school, a whole engineering academy. We were the guinea pig class, and I was always really smart in school, but never really engaged. And then when we got our robotics team, that like turned it on for me. And so I like had a purpose. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to become an engineer, and I competed in this robotics program every year of high school. And when I went to university at Auburn, they were the ones who hosted the competition. And so as a freshman, I went and found that office and volunteered and really just dove in as a student employee into, robotics education, STEM education. So our office was responsible for doing math tournaments, science Olympiad, robotics tournaments, science summer camps, and things like that. And so I kept pursuing that. And I realized when I was getting my engineering degree, I really loved the education aspect. And I was teaching teachers how to use robotics in their classrooms and growing the robotics in the state of Alabama. And when I went to graduate, I ended up with a master's in secondary science education. And our robotics education demand had gotten so big, we ended up starting a department as soon as I finished grad school.
Interesting. So what sparked your interest in real estate? How did you get started with that?
About the same time I graduated grad school, my little sister got me a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad. She was like, you should read this. I think you'd really like it. And that set me down my path to financial freedom. So when I got my first big boy job, I got a townhome in Auburn, and it's a SEC college town. And I always thought, if I ever leave Auburn, I can just turn this into an Airbnb. And it was still early in the Airbnb days. And it was like more like couch surfing. You could have a room available or free space in your living room. So when I ended up moving back to Birmingham from Auburn, which is about 2 hours away, that's exactly what I did. So I came back November 2019. We turned that Airbnb on January 1st, 2020. So it's been super easy to keep track of our progress over the years.
So is that kind of what led you to the whole midterm space? Is that you're transitioning out of short term because of like a lot of regulations are changing and things like that? Is that why you're in midterm, or do you just prefer midterm? How did you come to that?
Yeah, we prefer midterm. We didn't do it on purpose. So it was actually, we started January 2020, and we were just getting our feet under us, figuring out the whole process of what it takes to run a short-term rental. And then COVID hits, and we probably had 18 reservations get canceled, and Airbnb stopped taking reservations except for nurses, travel nurses. They're really pushing people to house travel nurses because they were in huge demand at the beginning of COVID. And so
Mhm.
we weren't able to get anybody else in. We shifted it to a midterm rental and got a travel nurse in there probably mid-March. And she was there for 8 months. And we are like, this is pretty easy. Like maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, without having to have like a long-term tenancy, you can kind of get the best of both worlds, a little bit stacked up higher rent because it's could be over any time,
Mm-hmm.
mixed with the stability of something like a 1 year lease. So with all these midterms, what's the biggest challenge that you've had to face so far?
It's been really smooth sailing with our midterm rentals. And the connotation that a lot of people get when they think of midterm rentals is it's only travel nurses. But over the years, we've gotten so many different kinds of guests. We have insurance bookings, we have people in between homes, we have people renovating their homes, we have grandmothers coming to visit a newborn baby and they want to get the baby settled. So they rent a place for a month or 2 months to help their children. We get people looking to find where they're going to live. A lot of times people get a job and they're like, I'm starting tomorrow. My family's got to move in 2 weeks. Let's
Mhm.
get a furnished place so we can get them up and going. And then we get
Yeah.
construction crews, and we just been really blown away by the variety of people looking for midterm rentals. Yesterday, I had a friend text me and said, "Hey, I have a professional baseball player who's looking for a place for 6 months. Do you have anything?"
Yeah, right. Because it's kind of like I'm here for a good time, not a long time. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
here for the money, whatever the job, the situation, but they're not trying to like live there. So they're looking for that full service kind of furnished look, and they can just move in, bring their clothes, live in it, and then, move out when it's time. So how did you grow from owning, a few in your first year to where we are now at, 31 and ongoing?
So 2020 was great. We started with one, and then in May, another one popped up for sale on my street, and I was like, we should try to buy that one. And previously, since I'd lived there for a few years, if a sign came up and was put up in a townhome in that subdivision, by the time you saw a sign, it was too late to buy it. But this
Mm,
was COVID, and so this was for sale by owner sign. The phone number had washed off. We ended up skip tracing the house and finding out that it was an engineering buddy of mine who owned it. And so that was the only way we were able to get our second property. And we used private money lender, close personal friend of ours, gave us money and he bought it as a second home. So we did 10% down. And then later that year, we ended up buying another one. It was a hard money product. It was 10% down for a $100,000 property, 900 square feet, 2-1, really nothing special, and 5% interest over 30 years. And I don't even know if that product exists anymore.
yeah, I
um,
don't know.
we ran out of capital the first uh, three properties, and so we started expanding with arbitrage. We're like, we really know what we're doing now. We can. So we started targeting landlords and pitching them, hey, let us be your long-term tenant, and we'll turn into a short-term rental. And these are the reasons why. Your long-term tenants aren't going to take care of your property like we are. They're not going to have it cleaned 50 times a year. They're not going to, you know, be on top of maintenance issues. They're probably going to let it sit. And a lot of the maintenance issues we'll take care of before we even bother you because it matters more to us that our guests are taken care of
Hmm.
on the front end.
So can you explain your focus on midterm rentals and some of the main ways that they differ from that short-term rental strategy? Like, what are some things you have to do in your midterm that short-term rental people don't necessarily have to deal with?
It's a good question. One of the things that we do that we don't do with our short term rentals because it's a shorter turnover is we require our cleaners to come and clean every 2 weeks, no matter how long they're staying. And that lets us get
Mhm.
eyes on the property. That really came about not because there was any issues coming up, but because we shifted from short term rental to long term rental or to midterm rentals, excuse me. And we wanted to keep our cleaners employed. They were part of our company. They had grown used to working with us, and we had the unintended side effect of basically cutting them out when we went to midterm rentals. But honestly, shifting to midterm rentals has been the best of both worlds. Um, we mitigate all the risks of short-term rental and all the risks of long-term rentals.
Yeah. Because it's like the long term one is always a challenge because people are kind of like nesting up. They don't really have much, maybe you inspect it every 6 months or something, but things can go quite a ways in 6 months. And with the midterm, you're checking on it, the maintenance, people are turning over, but not all the time. Plus, you're getting it cleaned every like 2 weeks, so it kind of keeps you on top of it. Um, I guess the big question people are probably interested is how did you expand your portfolio so quickly over the years?
We really focused on providing a really good service to the landlords we were working with. So we didn't have capital to go after properties. So we started targeting, again, landlords who've been doing this for 20 years. The first three people we had have been long-term landlords. And once we pitched them, give us a shot, they were all like, okay, we'll give you one. And it was really funny. Exactly the 90-day mark, pretty much across the board, they were all like, this is amazing. Let us give you more. And so we went from 3 to 8 that first year, all with the same three landlords. And then the next year, we're from 8 to 15, all with the same three landlords who just kept giving us units once they realized how easy it was. And one landlord ran properties for her mom, and she was like, my mom now wants to use you guys. And so it's been really growing word of mouth. And then lately, we've been getting a lot of people partnering in Birmingham through the sub two community who have properties and they don't know how to get them cash flowing.
So your arbitrage portfolio, you don't have control over it so much as you're using those properties to generate cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some you actually tidally own with partners. What would you say your breakdown is between like things you own and things you rent?
We probably, so we, after the arbitrage model, we ran into some issues, and those are the down months. So pretty much across the board, December through February, depending on your locale, is very slow for midterm and short term rentals. And
Mm.
as arbitrage, we were eating some rent. And so, like the first year we hit that first January, we came out of pocket like 5K, and we're like, ooh, that really hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we actually shifted to a co-hosting model where with a lot of our newer partners, because when we were arbitraging, we would still have to furnish it, and we didn't have access to business capital. We didn't know how to go after business capital. We didn't have private money lenders or anything. So we put everything on credit cards. We were bootstrapping and finding things off of Facebook Marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was like 2 years to break even just on that stuff. But we got a lot of experience. And so once we understood that was a huge issue, we shifted to co-hosting, where we're going to charge you 15% of gross to manage it. You're going to pay us a fee if you want us to set it up, and you're going to buy all the furniture for us to do that. And so we started off immediately cash flowing. We mitigated a lot of the risk for the down months because the landlords were now our partners in those deals. And then now that we're really rolling, we're moving back to arbitrage because we can increase the cash flow when you have enough properties to kind of buffer those down months.
So, what would you say has been your biggest success in real estate investing so far?
In terms of a property, or how do you mean?
Well, it's kind of your determination of success. Some people rate success as navigating out of a W-2. Some people have like targets about number of doors per year. What gets you excited?
Me and my wife are both former teachers, so we really get excited when we can help people. So in the midterm space, we really love providing people um, comfortable, safe housing when the other options are really bad. So nobody wants to be in an extended stay hotel. Um, you know, the we really enjoy getting to give our landlords peace of mind, and then some of our new ventures we're really excited about as well. So, I guess broadly, the intersection of helping people and making money at the same time is really where we enjoy ourselves. That's probably our
Nice.
biggest success.
So when you look at it, um, in doing so, how do you manage the time and the energy involved with that many? Because that's like a pretty active business, midterm rentals.
It's it's not as active as the short term is. We
Mm-hmm.
have a mix of semi-automated messaging and personalized messaging. So we use Channel Manager, Hospitable, which manages our Furnish Finder and our Airbnb. We recently just hired an intern who's been helping a ton with systems. And so now in the beginning of our 5th year in business, we've now moved from bootstrapping to putting systems in place to make everything run a lot more smoothly. And so we're adding our SOPs, our processes. We're at scale where we can hire people and take ourselves out of it and focus on growing more units. Um, we know what partnerships look like now. So at the beginning, we're like, let's see if this structure works. And if it doesn't, let's try to figure out a good structure on the next one. So now we're pretty stable.
Mm. So, when you talked about implementing systems to manage your growing portfolio, that typically falls to someone like an integrator on the team. What sort of qualities are you looking for when it comes to like an integrator for these systems and processes and all the things that you're putting in place? Because um, as a robotics guy, you must love the systems
Mm-hmm.
and processes. Um, but there's a certain personality type that enjoys that and some that don't. So how are you navigating implementing systems and also keeping the staff like on that curve?
So honestly, me and my wife are both visionaries. She's more of an integrator than I am. She's a mother of four, and she runs a lot of people just in her day to day life. And so, being more of an integrator, she's taking that on, and she's the one who actually interfaces with all of our guests. It's really nice working as a couple who's also running a business together
Mm.
because I can go after acquisitions and she can focus on building systems. And now that she's tired of it, we've now found people to help replace her. But the things that we're looking for in people it's basically things we don't have. And so neither one of us are very organized or structured. We're both very good problem solvers. And so we're
Mm.
now trying to find people who are able to ask us questions. How do you do this? What do you think about when you do this? And then put those systems in place for us while we're focusing on, answering those questions and figuring out how to put out fires and to prevent fires happening in the future.
So what advice would you give to someone looking to kind of make that transition from a traditional job to full-time real estate investing?
For me, I probably left the classroom way too early. It was the second day of school, and I got called in the principal's office to talk to a parent who told me I was being racist to her kid because I asked her kid to sit down. And I told my principal, I was like, I can't do this for the rest of the year. It's going to differ person to person. For me, I needed that leap. I needed the pressure of having to put food on the table for my family to motivate me. Other people might need a certain dollar amount or certain number of life savings, but my broad advice is to take a leap of faith and figure out where you're going. Nothing's more motivating than not knowing where your next paycheck's coming from, and
Mm.
taking imperfect action is so much better than taking no action. And
Mhm.
you're going to be taking imperfect action for a lot longer than you believe you're going to, and you can still make it work. So, we didn't know what we were doing for probably 2, 3, 4 years. And there's still a lot of parts of our business we don't know what we're doing, but we're just having taken action and being able to figure it out on the fly has taught us so much more than the thousands of hours of podcasts or all the books we've read.
So how can like educators and professionals leverage their skills to succeed in real estate? What did you say that you necessarily learned that you were able to transition over?
Well, in real estate, there's people a lot better than me, and in the classroom, there's people a lot better than me. But in general, the teacher skill set of having to stay organized, there's a lot of teachers who are really true integrators, and those systems are going to carry over super well. Just like things like lessons plans is going to transfer over to how do you set up an Airbnb unit and have
Mhm.
a plan from A to B or A to Z on how to do that.
Yeah, especially with all the like short term probably needs a ton of small, minute details, make sure this is there and make sure that the toilet paper is folded in a little triangle so they know that it's been touched. And when you look at everything that goes into real estate investing, um, the scale typically comes from other people's money, right? And
Yeah,
so as
it's
we
so hard
look,
to scale by yourself.
well, as we look into the future now with your business, how important is other people's money when you start looking at strategies like sub two and things like that?
Super important. Like we're not using our own money to buy anything or get any more units. And we've now developed a name for ourselves. So people are coming to us and say, "Hey, I had this property. Can you run it for us?" Or, "Hey, I have this property. Can you are you willing to partner?" So this week we had a person come to me and said, "Hey, I have this property. Has been underwater. I've just been paying the mortgage I took over sub two for 6 months, and I can't find a wrap buyer for it. Can you help me get it cash flowing?" And so he's giving up 50% of his equity just for us to take it over and manage it for him.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to what we're doing next, which is we're moving into group homes for veterans. To, midterm rentals are great. We love providing housing for people who need it, but we want to have more impact. And so we've really found a need for veteran housing and rent by the room and affordable housing options. And it really works in areas that midterm and short term don't work. So it's a really
Mhm.
good complement for all these opportunities coming our way.
Yeah, maybe we'll be seeing your seminar next year on veteran spaces and things like that.
Mhm.
So, um, when it comes to the midterm space, what do you find to be most important when evaluating a property for a midterm rental?
So people who are traveling, they want to feel safe. They want to have access to shops and restaurants and grocery stores. A lot of them are single professionals or groups of professionals. A lot of them travel with animals, and the people who travel professionally with their animals have the best animals, hands down.
Hmm.
Completely different than a long-term tenant with an animal where you're going to go in and you're going to find, half your stairs chewed up or whatever.
One door half
These, yeah,
missing.
these are the
Yeah.
best animals you've ever seen. And so we really try to focus on, creating a good home for them. I forgot where the question started. I'm sorry.
Well, it's more along the lines of when you look at the midterm space, um, is there like because one thing I've always been playing with is the proximity towards the actual spaces that they're working. So
Mhm.
like are you focusing on like hospital zones and you're saying I want to buy in here, or is it just like anything will do if the sub two numbers work?
Um, the biggest indicator is like the proximity to the highway, because a lot of people are just traveling, and so we'll get a lot of traveling professionals and they have to go all over the city, and their biggest factor is how soon can I get to the highway and do I feel safe. We're really lucky. Our other market is Auburn is a SEC college town, and so there are people coming through Auburn literally year round for 1 to 6 months for a litany of reasons. We have traveling engineers from Germany and Korea. We have visiting professors. We have grad students who need another like half a semester to finish their PhD, or same with undergrad or whatever. But it's just a ton of people just are related to the college who need housing, not for a year.
Mm-hmm. So what's the typical what's the typical rent versus a short-term rental? Like, is it less or is it more when you're talking about midterm?
Honestly, it's probably about the same, because where you lose money on the daily rate, so you obviously can't get a higher daily rate, you're getting your occupancy is way higher. So some of our units, we have 90% occupancy for 3 or 4 years as a midterm rental. Um, our third property is probably our best performing. That's the 900 square foot house. We bought it for $100,000. Our PITI is like 615, and we bring in 2,500 dollars per month on that one, and that one stayed 95% full for 4 years.
So when you look at the midterm space when you're talking about occupancy, the other thing that comes to mind for me is like short term requires a lot of maintenance of resetting, 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 resetting. So when you say that, you mean like short term, even though it might make let's say in a month it might make 3,400, but the cleaning is 400 and your midterm's 3 grand, and it's kind of the same. Like it balances out.
Well, the thing we notice in the short term space is unless you're like a destination, you're not filling up the weeks most of the time. And so a lot
No,
of people in the short term
of
space
course.
are between 8 to 12 weekends or days per month, where we really try to hit 25 days or 30 days per month consistently.
Yeah, because you're doing like the midterm rental. People are living there. Why would you have any vacancy in your midterm rentals in the first place? What's a reason why you see vacancy?
Just people needing to
Turnover?
come at different times. So we still do short-term rental, but our strategy with short-term rental is twofold. So we use short-term rental to fill the gaps between our midterm tenants. So somebody will leave and then there's like 3 weeks before the next midterm tenants coming in. So we'll open up for short-term in that period just to keep the occupancy up. And then we Auburn's a SEC football town, and we do short term rentals during game days. And even then, we've kind of experimented with extending our minimum length of stay for short term rentals. And for SEC games, we're telling people you got to stay here 4 nights for an SEC football game, and we've seen zero drop off on occupancy for during game days.
Yeah, because it seems like, I remember hearing that years ago that these NCAA towns, these college football towns, they're crazy for the. I've never, first of all, as a Canadian, I don't understand why they get like 65,000 people or 35,000 people at an NCAA football game. And I think they're paying, there's it's not an NFL ticket, but they're not getting in for free, are they?
So no, so Auburn is, we have the biggest rivalry with Alabama, probably in all of college sports. We have 90,000 people that can fit
That's
in
what
our
I'm saying. It's
stadium.
insane.
And, outside of the number of people just going to the game, there's probably another 50,000 showing up to experience the atmosphere around it. And it's one of those community collective experiences that you can't get anywhere else except for these towns, and probably something on par with like World Cup soccer in
Yeah.
other countries. It takes over the city, and so our city is 50 that Auburn's 50,000 people with students. So during the summer, it's probably a third of that. But on game days, we're closer to 150,000 people.
That's insane. So where do they all stay?
They stay at hotels and Airbnbs and campers and
There's a
RVs.
whole campers and RVs, I was gonna say, because it doesn't even sound like there's enough inventory to house all those people. They're
There's
driving
not.
in, they're
I have a
driving
buddy
in
of
on
mine.
game day.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine who he will sleep in his car because he'll rent out his room on Airbnb for game days, and then he'll also Uber when he's not sleeping, and he'll make $1,000 in like 6 hours of driving.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing when it comes down to college football and college basketball, and that's probably, I mean, does college baseball pull like that? I don't think so.
Tournaments will, and basketball doesn't do it either because basketball is a
It's just
2 hour,
football.
3 hour event. So football is an all day event, and that's what's the draw. It's like the Kentucky Derby. You're there for the experience. You're there for
And how many
the build
times a
up and the
year does
pregame.
that happen in Auburn?
We have 7 to 8 football games, home football games a year, but we're a tier 1 football school. Um,
So
so
tournaments, sub games, other practicing things, like it's a business.
but yeah, most of our schedule is against other teams who are in the top 25. And so, people like to see elite football, and then we're one of the most loyal fan bases across college sports in general.
I never understood it. We have trouble getting 15,000 people to come and watch a hockey game in the NHL in Winnipeg, and 90,000 people come out to see. The majority of these players won't probably, like, this is their peak, like they're going to go on to be lawyers, doctors, dentists, and they're football players or whatever. But, it's like you're saying, it's like Burning Man thing. It's like we gotta go to the big game, and like who remembers the game? Maybe they don't even go in. Like we have a lot of that with our football team. Is like people will party in the South End. They call it the S zone because it's the student zone. The majority of them have their back turned to the game. Like they're not even watching the game. They're there to party at the game. So very interesting stuff. So you're obviously in the expansion phase. You're going to need more capital. For the money partners that you have with all these things, what's the reporting like for people who are part of your business that have lent you money, or are you still working on how to get like you have money partners in some of these deals, or is it all sub two?
No, it's we have money partners in most of our deals.
So what's the reporting like? Like if I'm an investor in your thing, what can I expect as far as like security with my money when I'm investing with your company?
Because we're using private money lenders, it really depends on lender to lender. A lot of them were just like, here's what we have in our portfolio. Here's other references. A lot of people don't even ask about our numbers. We'll ask about a number for a couple of properties and I'll give them references. And then they'll ask what we're looking for. And basically we're saying, we want people to lend at 10 to 12% interest only, for whatever period of time you want, at least 2 years, 2 to 5 years. And then if you want to pull your money out at that point, you can. We'll go find somebody else to come in and lend. And your money is backed by real estate. A lot of these people love real estate, but they don't have time to find their deals. They don't want to be active investors, but they want to park their money somewhere that performs better than their 401k or IRA or stock portfolio.
So do you send like daily, weekly, monthly reports to your investors to say, hey, your money safe?
We're getting to that point. Really, as long as our investors are getting their check every month, a lot of them don't even ask. They're just like, just leave it and forget it.
Yeah.
It's like checking your Bitcoin wallet after a few months. You're like, okay, it's still performing. It's still there.
I wish I would have kept that Bitcoin in there and forgot about it when I bought in at 12K. But it went up to like 31 and I sold out. But now it's at, I don't even know what it is.
60, 70, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a few $1,000, big deal. There's some people who bought in at a fraction and sold for pizza. I know that story. So
I remember buying a pizza at $300 Bitcoin. And then my sister forgot about 5,000 she put in there. She told me yesterday or last week that it turned into 50K.
There you go. Right. So money invested in the right place over time compounds and gets a good set it, forget it, invest with these guys, forget about it, get your money. So if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more, what should they do? How do they find you?
Probably the place I'm most active is at Good People Home Buyers. And that really follows our ethos is we want to do good and treat people well, and buy properties and being involved in real estate. So you can reach out to me on Instagram, Good People Home Buyers, at Good People Home Buyers, and I'll answer all your messages.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by and letting people know that not a lot of people are in this space, but I have imagined as the attack on short term continues, more midterm is going to start to pop up. And I think maybe that's what they're looking for. Maybe they want to get more spaces for transitioning people and nomadic workers, right? So, yeah, I really appreciate you stopping by. And until next time, guys, we'll check you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Bryce. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.